Okay, welcome everyone. This is your first lecture for English 202, reading and writing about literature 1, as you can see here, the winter 2022 standard semester. Which is sort of modified, as you can see here today, that we're doing the YouTube lecture, whereby I record a PowerPoint and then convert it to a video, then upload it to my YouTube channel, and then send you the link. And that's going to be the way, the mode of which we're gonna receive at least till the 21st our lectures for this class, 3 times a week, estimated around 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes. The videos will be. You don't want to make them too long because you start to lose individuals' attention if they exceed, say, an hour. So I would say on average, the lecture is going to be around 45 to 50 minutes. All right, reading and writing about literature 1. My name, as you can see here, is Jeremy Jackson. Um, my office phone number is right here. That would not be the best way to contact me. I'm currently teaching in Toronto remotely. So when the semester starts, face to face, brick and mortar, then I'll be out in the Medicine Hat. But in the meantime, the way to contact me would be through email, and we're going to cover that in a moment. Uh, So course times, these are sort of arbitrary in a way. It says Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. to 1:50, room S146. That will begin hopefully when we come face to face on in January, later this month. But I would say expect your lecture to be emailed to you. Your link to the YouTube video for our video lecture will be emailed to you no later than say 2 o'clock Alberta time, between say noon and 2 o'clock Alberta time. This course, just looking at the calendar description, this course explores the narrative structures of poetry, drama, and prose literary works with an emphasis on developing skills in close reading and critical writing. Students will examine a range of eras and cultures, covering at least one significant text by an indigenous author, and we'll look at that in a moment. Note, students cannot receive credit for both English 202 and English 1151. So sort of 3 credit hours for the class. It's typical um, program delivery, as we're seeing right now for the next 2 weeks, may be subject to change due to health or other factors beyond Medicine Hat College's control. So yeah, so if we just take a look at the office hours, again, they're sort of arbitrary. What I will do, since we're working remotely, and you're receiving the YouTube link for this lecture, is you can email me at any time during the week, and I'll typically get back to you, within reason, within an hour, to sort of quell any concerns or field any questions that you might have concerning any of the texts that we're looking at the beginning of this semester. Hopefully the books. That being said, hopefully the books are stocked in the library. There might be some later books that we're going to read 2 months from now that maybe aren't there yet. One student has reached out to me concerning that because it's not currently stocked in the library. We're going to talk about that in a moment. So I'm going to get back on next lecture, so that would be Wednesday, to figure out. I'll let you know in the lecture what the current status is of the books. But hopefully you're able to receive the first book, um, the book of poetry by Basho, um, The Narrow Road to the Deep North. It's a book of ancient Japanese poetry, because that's what we're going to cover starting, and we're going to look at the schedule in a moment, which has to be somewhat modified because of the couple days that we haven't had class. Um, but we're going to start with that, with Basho's book of poetry, starting Friday. I'll give you a lecture on that. Hopefully that's the way it's going to unfold as we modify the schedule. So I can be available at any time. Please email me if you have any concerns or questions or need any sort of explanation of anything. Um, Here's the link. It We have a number of choices with regard to these texts, right? These works that we're going to look at this semester. You can buy them in ebook form. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all available. You can find them online for free. There's a couple in here. The Awakening by Chopin. I'm pretty sure there's a PDF on that out there. I'd like you, when we return face to face, to have a physical text in front of you so that you can read aloud in class various passages when I prompt you. But I always enjoy having an electronic form of the book so I can search, hit Control F and then do an internal search within the document to find any passages that I want to quote within the essays that we're going to cover this semester. Let's see. So in look, or you can buy all these in e-form, but also you can purchase them through Amazon, and a lot of students opt for that because it's cheaper. Because of course, uh, in all likelihood, Medicine at College's campus bookstore um, raises the price so they can make some modest profit off of each book. So it might be cheaper just to purchase them through Amazon. So the first book, as we briefly covered before, The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Basho, it explores various Japanese forms. We're going to look at that to include haiku, haibun, waka. So it's really going to be a deep dive into various ancient Japanese forms of poetry writing. The Awakening by Kate Chopin sort of is what I look through as we look through various lenses of literary criticism this semester. We're talking about feminism, feminist writing, and this is a good example of that sort of feminist writing. Um, the Awakening by Kate Chopin, great. The Life, History, and Travels of Kaguya-Gabbo by George Copway. That was the book that a student had raised concern that it's not currently being stocked in the bookstore. So I'll find out what the status of that is, and I'll get back to everyone concerning that, at least by Wednesday during the lecture. Plays and Petersburg Tales. Petersburg Tales, Marriage, The Government Inspector by Nikolai Gogol. So for this one, really all we need for this class is The Government Inspector. It's a play, right? This is the play that we're going to look at. So this course requires looking at a book of poetry, 2 novels, and then, of course, a drama, which in this case is The Government Inspector. So if you can locate that, you really don't need the rest of this right here, the plays in Petersburg Tales, Marriage, just The Government Inspector. Every essay that's going to be crafted this semester, it has to be done in Microsoft Word. Every semester, individuals want to do it through, I don't know, Google Documents or some other variation of that. And I always get, in a large part of the class we're going to cover in a moment, relies upon how the essay is formatted in terms of its MLA. So you're probably familiar with APA or AP. Sorry. This class uses Modern Language Association as its guiding principle in terms of how to format your essay. It dictates what the essay looks like in terms of its margins, in terms of what the font to use, what font size, where to put the header of your name, my name, the class, the date, etc. So you're going to need Microsoft Word, and it's free. So just follow this link if you haven't already to obtain it. Okay. Course objective, learning outcomes. Course objectives. The course offers an introduction to literature published before 1900. So that's really the main driving force of this. All these texts are published before 1900. In the case of Kate Chopin's book, it was published in 1899, so just before the turn of the century. Along with training in the essential skills needed to study and write about literature at the university level. A number of overarching questions will guide our discussions as we examine a selection of poetry, prose, and drama. Namely, how does a particular text relate to the broader cultural milieu from which it emerged? So think of milieu is just a literary term we use. It's French. That means the era, the era in which this book was written. There are these various books were written. What values are seemingly at play in that text, and how might they differ from our own values? What seems to make a particular text evocative to different audiences? So we'll explore the seductiveness of these texts and why were they popular and still sort of have wherewithal to remain popular even today, thrusted forward to the 2022. Learning outcomes. Committed students will gain a foundational understanding of and an expertise in critically reading and writing about literature published before 1900, as we covered just prior. So I think, as we mentioned before, this detailed course content and topic and sequencing, the dates that assignments are due, and when we're going to cover each text are going to shift slightly. We're going to have to rejigger this. So the following schedule is provisional. We may adjust the sequencing depending on the pace of class discussion. Also, depending on the factors that we're currently emerged in now, and that, of course, is learning remotely. So January 5th has already passed. January 7th has already passed. Today is the 10th. And today we're just reviewing the course introduction, the course outline, and the expectations of the class. On Tuesday, we'll do the MLA PowerPoint, and that takes about 50 minutes. It's boring, but it's essential for you to understand of what your grade relies upon this semester. It relies upon, of course, the content of you exploring the text, each text, and writing about it, but it also requires a large part in how you format it using MLA, or Modern Language Association. formatting style. And what happens typically is students will turn in the first couple essays with whatever writing style they're used to, which is typically AP. Um, and then I have to correct them and say, no, that's why your grade was so low, because you turned in the wrong formatting style. So please, you're going to watch that PowerPoint. It's going to be good. It's going to be really informative in terms of moving forward to how you format your essay. Let's see. I'm just going to go through maybe half of this just so you understand that there's sort of a pattern involved in each month of this semester that will sort of introduce. Each month will be introduced. Hopefully, we'll focus on each different book. Um, there might be some overlap between the months. So after we look at after next class, when we look at MLA PowerPoint, and then the next class after that, we're going to focus on the rubric, elements of poetry, and we might have to push back, actually. Yeah, we're most likely going to push back the narrow road to the deep north past Friday into Monday. So just bear that in mind. I'll let you know. I'll inform you both through email form, but also within the lecture on Wednesday. So we eventually will start with the narrow road to the deep north. It's an easy read. It's kind of a longer book, maybe 100 pages, but in terms of book of poetry, right, for a collection of poetry, that's sort of above standard. I would say 80 pages is probably standard for a collection. But it's an easy read. And just enjoy it for its sort of what we're going to lecture on, the elements of poetry, what that is, what to look at, what to focus on. I've had books of poetry that I've used in my classes that were sort of difficult reads, so I've tried to gravitate away from those so that students can sort of enjoy it more. So just read it. Don't think too deeply of it. See it for its simplicity and its beauty in terms of what it offers through nature. Let's see. So each book we're going to read, and then we're going to have an in-class reader response, right? So we have the whole class, 50 minutes to sit down. I'll give you 2 questions in paper form if we're face-to-face. If not, it'll be through an email that I send you. And you have to answer 1 question and say, and it doesn't have to be a full-blown essay, but it needs to be at least a page long. Single space, not double space in that case. So we'll explore all Japanese poets and Chinese poets because they're highly relatable from that era, from ancient Chinese poetry to ancient Japanese poetry. And then you could see we move on. We'll spend a number of days on the first book of poetry, and then we move on to the elements of fiction. Each section, whether it's the poetry, whether it's fiction, and whether it's drama or play, we will cover the elements of. So the elements of poetry, elements of fiction, elements of drama. It'll give you a foundational architecture of sort of how that landscape of that genre it sort of interacts with the world, right? And then we move on to The Awakening. That'll be our first novel. We'll read that. And then we'll have a short essay, number 1. There are 2 short essays within the class. And that's going to be turned in. You do it on your own, on your leisure time, and you have to turn in. It'll be to Blackboard. Every assignment's going to be turned in through Blackboard. And what will happen is I'll create a folder in Blackboard for you to upload your essay in a Word or PDF form, and I'll send you the link and give you instructions for doing that. And then at some point, most likely in February, because we have to rejigger these dates, we'll have the first discussion on the narrow road to the deep north by Basho. And we'll talk about the elements of story. Kurt Vonnegut, great novelist, wrote many novels, considered a sort of dark comedy. His first and most famous novel was Slaughterhouse-Five. Many of you might be familiar with that. Sort of what we call an anti-war novel. So he gives a really good understanding of the framework of what story is. I think that will help inform us moving forward. That'll be helpful. And then we'll look at 20th century authors. All right, so, and then we'll look at the idea of feminist voice and what feminist theory, critical literary theory is. And then you have in-class reader response number 2. As you see, in January 17th, we covered the first one. That date might not stick, so we know we have to move things. But you're going to have a second one. Let's go ahead and look at the major assignments moving forward. As you can see, everything is detailed of what's due. So when you email me and say, what's due? I don't know what's due. I'm just going to reference you to the syllabus, to the course outline. That's instructional techniques. So short essays, 3 to 5 pages long. This is And I'll push you towards this well, the instructional technique, when you say, well, how long do our essays have to be, or what type of formatting, or how long is the test going to be, what kind of questions are going to be on the test. So the short essays, 3 to 5 pages long, double spaced, modern language association formatting style, with one primary source and two secondary sources. So your primary source is the book we're reading, right? And your secondary sources would be you reaching out to an outside source who are authorities on whatever subject matter you want to sort of tackle within your essay. We have in-class reader responses, so that's a 1-page minimum with one primary source. So since you're joining class, you don't have to reach out to any outside authorities. You just relied upon your own internal logic of the text that you have, the primary source that we're reading. All right, and you have the entire class to write it. Blackboard discussions, 1 or 2 paragraphs minimum. So in the Blackboard discussion, I'll send you a link, or I'll send you instructions rather. You go into Blackboard, you look at the things the various conversations I've started, and you can either react and reply to what I've started, or you can react and reply to what someone else has reacted and replied to me. And it'll become clearer as the semester progresses. Then we have a test towards the end of the semester, 25 multiple choice questions, and that's all based on elements of poetry, elements of drama, and elements of fiction. The final essay, and we'll look at that due date in a moment. Well, we can scroll up. Final essay due date, April 18th. So it gives you a week past when classes end. To sort of finalize it. 5 to 8 pages, double spaced, MLA formatting style. And by then you should be darn near an expert in MLA formatting style, because I would have corrected it left, right, and center on your essays. With one primary source, and now you can see we extended out to 3 secondary sources. So the primary source would be whatever text we're reading, and the 3 secondary sources will be any outside authorities you could find discussing those texts that we're reading within the class. The grade assessment, 2 short essays, 15% each. 3 in-class reader responses, 10% each. 3 Blackboard discussions, 5% each. The test is 10, and the final essay is 15%. So a pretty big chunk of your grade. And here you can read this at your leisure, the dates of major assessments. I try to sort of map it out so they're spread out and doesn't get too congested where they overlap. I know they can get. I know I'm not the only class you're taking this semester, and it can get sort of challenging. If you have dates where many things are converging, due dates. Final exam, you'll be happy to know this class has no final exam component as part of it. There's going to come a time with midterms and final exams that you're going to be having in the classes, and it'll be a pretty good reprieve for not having it in this class. So late assignments and missed exam policy. And what I want to avoid is this. I've had each semester, I've been at Medicine College for 4 years now, and every semester, without miss, a student will let assignments go to the point they email me and say, I missed like 4 assignments, I was depressed. And that's fine, I get that. Mental health is very important, especially during this time. And they said, I want to catch up. Is there any way I can catch up? I said, of course. Turn the assignments in, even though they're super late. We could work out something, right? And then they never turn anything in. I never hear from them. They ghost on me. But I don't want you doing that. If you really have a mental health issue, and we can set up a plan to get your assignments in so you can at least try to pass the class, right? Give you a chance to pass the class and not waste your money and waste everybody's time. I'll work with you. That being said, I'll read just straight from the text here and late assignments and exam policy. You're responsible for turning your work in on time to get the best grade, right? Assignments should be submitted in class or to Blackboard before midnight on this specified due date. And as I said before, we're strictly turning things in on Blackboard. Late assignments will be penalized 5% per day. Work will not be accepted more than 7 days after the posted deadline. Work submitted more than 7 days will not receive a grade of 0. Deadline will not be extended without penalty unless you have a valid reason, illness, family emergency, and you email me asking for an extension at least 24 hours before the assignment is due. In some cases, such as medical illness, I may ask for documentation. If you will need to miss class for a documented illness or a religious holiday or other religious activity and need accommodation, be in touch with me well in advance if possible so we can plan accordingly. So if you undergo any of these problems, assignments being late and it starts to become sort of problematic and it's out of control, we need to hammer out a plan. So contact me. Always err on the side of contacting me to figure it out. Sorry, one moment. Will do. So here we go. just quickly, sorry, that was my son. They're homeschooling in Ontario, so we're all trying to hog the computer. So academic dishonesty, this has been a problem sometimes in the past. I don't see it a lot anymore. It just depends, but just avoid plagiarism. So that means just give attribution to whoever words you're borrowing from, or direct quoting, or paraphrasing, or summarizing. But plagiarism and cheating are serious offenses and may be punished by failure on exam, paper, or project, failure in course, and/or expulsion from the course. I've never had the expulsion part, but I've certainly had. Uh, I've never had the failure part. I've certainly had people who plagiarized either inadvertently or advertently, right, on purpose. This is a typical grade scheme. Take a look at that. I think it's pretty generous to get an A from an A plus to A minus. Um, Bear that in mind. Also, we're going to go over a rubric, probably not next class, but Friday. And I'm going to post that to Blackboard, and then you'll be able to see really what a essay is versus a B versus a C versus a D versus a fail. Accessibility statement. If you're a student that requires additional accommodations to support your learning and have been approved through our Accessibility Services Office, room B367, please contact your instructor prior to exams or any other forms of evaluation if accommodation is desired. That's fine. If you require accommodation for any of the assignments, then I would implore you to go contact these individuals if you haven't already. Mental health statement. Medicine College recognizes the importance of student mental health. I briefly covered that before, and well-being, and has many resources available for supporting students throughout their academic journey. Services such as counseling, support groups, self-help modules dedicated to helping you manage things like anxiety, stress, depression, and relationships are accessible to students on the campus as well as online. To connect with the mental health and counseling, visit the student advising counter by calling this number, and of course you can follow this link as well. I think it's a great resource. Students need it if they enter a moment where there's so many assignments are converging, they lose their confidence. They need help, and it's anonymous. They won't reach out to me and say anything concerning what the issue is, or maybe you want them to be a mediator and reach out to me. That's fine, but you could also feel comfortable in approaching me as well. I'm not going to chide or admonish you for any issues. We're going to work something out, right? Students' responsibility. So what you have to bring to this class. General notes on conduct and expectations. Students should have read the assignments material before class lectures and be ready to share their ideas in our Blackboard and in-class discussions. Needless to say, I hope students should never sleep, send text messages, surf the internet, talk to other students, or otherwise be disruptive or impolite during the class. If you cannot refrain from doing these things, you should not attend the class. Only students who have received an accommodation through the Accessibility Service Office are permitted to make a video or sound recordings of any part of this class. Students are responsible for frequently checking their Medicine College email. That's going to become a very important component. Checking your email every day for updates that I might give, or links that I might give, or instructions for posting your essay to Blackboard, or reacting to a discussion, or update of the course outline because it is shifting. In order to remain current with administration and academic notifications, if you find yourself struggling in the course, do so come by to see me during office hours to discuss potential remedies for that. All right, well, that's pretty much it. Please, this is in Blackboard, so please go over it yourself. Next class, as I said before, we're going to go over the MLA PowerPoint of what your essays should look like moving forward this semester. Welcome to the class. I think we're having some exciting text that we're going to cover. Please reach out to the bookstore if you haven't already, or Amazon, or through ebook form to purchase your books so that you can be up to date. Thanks a lot. Talk to you guys later. Bye.